Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Bitcoin is pumping once again, and now is where we need to be cautious because we just started to test the bearish levels I've been warning about for a week or two now. For those of you who have been in my recent live streams, know I've been very vocal about the fact that a pump up towards 90K was fairly expected, as it would be the start of my resistance fibs when pulling a range from our current 4-hour lower high on the 6-week downtrend, currently sitting at around 93.2K. For me, even up towards 95K is fair game for a swing fail, liquidity grab, fake out kind of a situation. But if the bulls can at least push past 93.2K, I would be at least willing to consider the possibility that the downside downtrend is broken, and it may be time to search for bullish STUBER long setups a little more aggressively. Earlier today in my Telegram, I had mentioned that if we broke the 88,000 level, we would be actually invalidating the 5-minute downtrend on the MDX Trendmaster indicator with the lower trending sell signals, or just the most recent sell signal, that is. And if we ended up invalidating that, we would likely just push straight up to my 4-hour resistance starting at around 90K. And that's exactly what ended up happening, you guys. Members in my Telegram already have an idea what my plans are moving forward from this move. So if you want more signals like these, my partners at BloFin are currently giving my followers a sign-up promo for a $300 position airdrop, which will also get you access to my free Telegram channel, where I share more examples of how I pull fibs, clear explanations of powerful market structure, just more of my thoughts on the markets in general. So if that is something that interests you, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code that is on my BloFin poster here. But yeah, guys, like I said on the 4-hour chart, I mean, this is just how the structure has been for quite a while. So yeah, it's very natural that we ended up getting this bounce. But like I said, now's the time where we have to be a little bit cautious. And of course, I'm talking about the downtrend of just very basic market structure, you guys. But this would have been our most recent low, followed by our lower low here on the 4-hour. So the highest point between the two here is currently around 93.2 thousand. And that would be my confirmed lower high on the trend. So obviously, yeah, we could end up breaking that. Downtrends break, eventually trends end up breaking, but the trend is your friend until the end. So at this point, until we end up breaking that level, I just don't want to celebrate too early here. But yeah, it is great to see some signs of life from the bulls, because I had my concerns. The fact that we weren't even making it up to basic structure, the fact that we were respecting the resistance on this indicator a little bit early, I thought that it was looking a little bit weak. So it is nice to see that we at least got this little bit of a push and at least getting our bounces to typical bounce levels. Basically, obviously, my STUBER fib pocket here would be the purple, which would be from my 786 to my 886 fib pocket. And then my red box up here is that liquidity grab fake out zone I talked about. And that basically runs up to about 95,000. But like I said, even if we get a break into that level, at least we can, yeah, there might be a nice short setup kind of a thing if it fails. However, it's very possible that even just breaking above that could just see some sort of a pullback, and then we get into a nice long position on some sort of a support retest. So that's something that we'll have to pay attention to. But yeah, as it stands right now, it is what it is. We've got this nice pump, but we are finally at the start of my resistance. And that's the key thing to take away from this, guys, is that we could still go a little bit higher and still be in a, well, I'm going to say healthy downtrend, but just a downtrend in general, bearish, however you want to say it. This is only the start, right? When I'm looking at laddering into a position on something like this, that would just be my first laddered order, would basically be the 786, and I would be laddering up basically towards my invalidation, just to help bring that average entry up, so that if I end up getting stopped out, it's a significantly smaller loss. And, trading isn't all about winning every trade, but it's also about controlling losses and having proper invalidation so you can cut your losses quickly, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at on the 4-hour right now. Another reason why, as the title says, I think 100K is actually possible if we end up breaking that lower high resistance around 93.2K. just because of this weekly trend line I've been talking about for a while now. I would not be surprised to see us get some sort of a retest of that old support flipping into new resistance. I mean, anything can happen at this point, you guys. I don't want to say it has to play out the exact same, because I mean, anything can happen in these market cycles. And I mean, yeah, fractal patterns are fun and everything, but eventually they do break as well, obviously. So, I mean, this is looking very similar to how we looked last market cycle, basically losing an uptrend like that, a diagonal support line, and then seeing some sort of a reaction like that. I mean, let's just look, if we pull a fib on this previous market cycle where we were topping out, notice that we did the same thing, where right now we currently tested the 886 absolutely perfectly, much like back here what we did when we lost that diagonal support. We ended up eventually testing that 886, getting some sort of a relief rally basically to the first Stuber fib target, right? The 0.5 fib, which also happens to line up around, well, a little higher than 100,000, but that $100,000 area-ish, right? Same thing if we look at it on not the logarithmic chart, but just the regular chart here. Same thing though, right? If we get a retest or even hit that first target as a typical Stuber fib setup, which I have mentioned in the past why I don't actually consider this a real clean Stuber fib, but it is still a potential support level from a large range. So yeah, it doesn't meet all my criteria for a Stuber fib, but that does not mean that it's not still support. Right. And if it is going to play out the same, I mean, a 0.5 just to test the middle of the range again would be very close to basically retesting that SR flip as well as the first target for a Stuber. So very possible there. Another reason why I want to say that the not all hope is lost for the bulls, you guys, is look how aggressively retail has building shorts. I mean, you can just see this is on the daily chart. Retail longs are currently, I'm going to say only, it's still actually quite high, but only between 64 and 65% right now. Whereas, I mean, about a week ago, we saw it at around 80%. So, retail has given up on the long side. They quit trying to catch that knife. They quit trying to long the dip. And now they start FOMOing into shorts late. And that gives us fuel for the upside, right? So another level I want to point out that obviously, yes, I have this weekly level I was talking about around 100K, but let's actually look at the log scale chart where that diagonal trend line is a lot steeper and it goes up a lot higher. And if we were to get a retest, it would be a lot closer to some sort of a bearish Stuber fib setup, right? So if I just go back over, back to this chart here, yeah, you know what? It's very possible that we get a retest of resistance and the macro resistance, right? I mean, I've been mostly talking about this 4-hour resistance, and even that 4-hour resistance I've been talking about has been just the very immediate downtrend. So a very micro level as far as the macro trend goes. Whereas if we really zoom out on the daily here and look at the macro for what it is, if retails do continue building shorts, I think it's very possible that that's fuel for the rocket ship and we continue climbing to the upside. And if we're going to respect this the way we would a 5-minute, for example, I mean, it's very possible we get a bounce all the way up towards all-time highs. Not saying we have to break all-time highs. Also not saying we can't, right? I mean, you guys know I've been very bearish recently, but in the game of trading, I mean, you need to have invalidations and, basically not so much, if we start climbing, for example, it's not that I'm going to be bearish on the entire climb to the upside. I would gladly, if we break that 4-hour micro trend, I would gladly start longing some dips. However, that, I still think it's very possible that when we get to macro resistance, that's where we need to be a little bit careful again, just like right now on the 4-hour that we have to do. I would feel the very same way on the macro scale. And I know, guys, if we end up actually getting a strong bounce and getting back up towards all-time highs, social media and the FOMO and everything is going to be crazy. You are going to see us go basically euphoric as we haven't even broken resistance. Right as we hit resistance, that's very natural to end up seeing. So again, just be careful if we end up getting that. Then trust me, that would be a beautiful push, right? To be able to push back towards 116K, maybe even all the way up towards 130. That is an absolutely monstrous move to the upside. But just understand, again, when we hit resistance, that's where it's time to, if you get yourself into some nice long positions, that's where I would be, me personally, I would be taking a lot of profits off of my positions if I was playing the upside and we hit this level. As well as watching shorter time frames, looking for short opportunities and that sort of thing. Because even though, yes, like I said earlier, it could break, right? If we end up going to the upside and we just, set new highs and start staircasing higher, I have no arguments to be made from the bearish side anymore, right? I mean, if my invalidation happens and we start staircasing higher, fantastic. I will be longing every pullback that I can find at that point. But we just have to be careful as we get up to those levels is all. Bitcoin dominance. This is nice to see for the market as well, specifically altcoins. The fact that we have this lower sell signal on the daily chart on the MDX Trendmaster, that is a huge signal. We have not had a lower buy on this for quite some time. Maybe, I guess you could consider this a slightly lower one. But even that's pushing it. It's not super clean or anything, but for the most part, I mean, this whole uptrend, we've just been seeing higher sell signals on the Bitcoin dominance. So to see this big bearish warning sign, not saying it can't be invalidated, but that is a beautiful sign for the altcoin market, in my opinion. Ethereum obviously pumping nicely with Bitcoin. And that's the thing, guys, is obviously, if Bitcoin ends up hitting resistance and dropping off a cliff, yeah, it's very possible that altcoins will nuke with it. However, when Bitcoin finds its support, that's where altcoins like Ethereum, Solana, Hype, just BNB, a bunch of coins like that, they will also react when Bitcoin ends up finding support, but they will react much more violently. And I really feel that's the phase of the cycle we're at. So from the long side of things, yeah, I'm still willing to look at Bitcoin, but more so looking for Bitcoin to do something bullish on the 4-hour chart and then start playing altcoins more aggressively to the long side, and still kind of keeping my eyes open for more of a Bitcoin short. Because even if Bitcoin has topped, I still think it's quite likely that altcoins end up going for some sort of a moon mission if we are at the end of the cycle. That would be very typical. Ethereum, though, notice same thing. It's actually even closer to its 4-hour resistance. So maybe we get an early warning sign from Ethereum. What Bitcoin's going to do, who knows? But same thing as the structure I just pointed out, right? You guys, we have this low here, and our next bounce would have been down here for our lower low. Our confirmed lower high on this immediate downtrend on the 4-hour for Ethereum is sitting around 3,060 US dollars. So if we can end up breaking that level, that's where, again, I think Ethereum would be in great shape for looking for some sort of long setups. So not all hope is lost. It's also not like the bulls are in the clear at this point. We just got to be careful, got to go a little bit higher to confirm some sort of a breakout. And even at that point, I'd be looking for some sort of pullbacks if, at least on the lower time frames. I wouldn't really be looking to play a breakout in case we get some sort of a swing fail at this level. If that's the case, if we get something like that, I would love to try and short the retest of that with a nice tight stop for basically a swing short type of position. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Solana, very much the same thing. This one's actually been moving a little more aggressively than Ethereum, but again, very same structure, right? We're seeing this. You're seeing a common theme, hopefully, that let me just get rid of that. Basically, a lot of coins are currently at resistance. They're looking very good, but they are at resistance, and we need to keep that on our radar. Solana is no different. On the 4-hour, we have this low here. We have a lower low, confirmed lower high on the trend there would be sitting, around 145 US dollars, basically. So if we can just push a little bit higher and break that, I would love to look for some sort of a long opportunity like that. Or if we end up getting a swing fail, I would like to look for some sort of a short opportunity like so. But yeah, we're just going to have to see what we end up getting. Aster, still working our way down towards my STUBER fib pocket down here. I still think it's quite likely we end up down there. because we are still setting a bit of a downtrend. And here's a perfect example. I can microanalyze this for you a little bit. I know not everybody's into the microanalyzing, but I'm going to show you because I think it's important. But basically, when we started our little downtrend here, let's even just say from where we topped here, because technically we could say this is very microanalyzing again, guys, but technically this wick and this wick, we get a higher high. That means the lowest point between the two is there. And when we end up breaking it, look what ends up happening. Pulling a fib like so, we test the 786 perfectly and get rejected. So yes, it's microstructure, but look how well it was still respected. If you didn't want to go by the wicks, let's go by the candle bodies then. We had our candle bodies closing here, and we closed some candle bodies a little bit higher. So again, confirming a higher high there. And again, we end up losing that, setting a STUBER fib. Let's say, where's our next lower low? There would be our next lower low, confirming this as our lower high. Don't get anywhere near that one, obviously. Not a good bounce in sight. However, we set another lower low. This would be the highest point between the two. And look how well that was respected, you guys. So again, yes, microanalyzing, but look how well that very basic market structure gets respected. It's absolutely crazy how well very, very basic market structure gets respected. It is honestly the biggest edge you could ever have in this market for trading is not complicating indicators, not complicating fundamentals, announcements, figuring out what the global liquidity is doing, all of that sort of stuff. Yes, those things all factor into price action, but it's so complicated and so easy to misanalyze something or just miss something. Whereas this very, very basic market structure, if you're looking at a downtrend, all you need to understand is a strong grasp of lower lows, basically, right? Whereas on an uptrend, you need to basically have a strong concept of watching higher highs and just confirming your market structure from there, basically. But it will go so much further in the game of trading than anything else. But yeah, obviously, everyone has their own strategies. Everyone has their own methods of trading. But I personally, I really like Fibonacci's because they're very structure-based. They're very systematic. And yeah, basic higher highs, lower lows, that sort of thing for very basic market structure. And that's all the sort of things that I am teaching and just showing so many examples in my Telegram channel. Troll, this is one that's been on my radar for a while. I love to see that we've actually had some daily closes above the first. This is the first time that we've broke a lower high on this on the immediate trend of the daily chart since we set all-time highs after we went on that 30x run or whatever. So it is nice to see that we're starting to see some signs of life. Also, where that structure break came in was from the order block that ended up sending us through the previous all-time high when we had a very long range last time. So it's an important support level, and to see structure breaking at this point, I love to see that. Also on the 1 hour, you can see that we have higher trending sell signals and higher trending buy signals. So far that trend, just basically it's respecting a support level quite well at this point. I wanted to take a look at the S&P 500, the SPX. I did mention this in, I can't remember if it was my last stream or 2 streams ago, but we do still have this daily buy trend on the MDX Trendmaster. We ended up losing it briefly, but never got a sell signal or anything, and we ended up reclaiming it. So technically, I would say that this trend still looks good. One thing to consider here from a bearish perspective would be, let's just get rid of everything. And technically on the daily chart, since we had this high, we obviously sent it higher, right? Higher high. That means that here is where we had our confirmed higher low on the trend and technically ended up losing that. So at this point, as far as a bearish structure setup, I mean, actually we had one back there that was more micro, though we never actually had the loss of the higher low. But right here, notice that we are, well, currently basically testing the 786, right? So still in a beautiful uptrend, right? The fact that the Trendmaster, we're still holding that pink line, still pushing to the upside very aggressively, but just understand that there is this little warning shot fired here, and we are starting to test resistance a little bit. So that could be an interesting one to keep our eye on as well. And guys, if you do appreciate these live streams, trying to be the voice of reason in this crazy market, just trying to keep a level head and trade the charts for what they are rather than the hopium, rather than the total fear out there, rather than the fundamentals and tweets and that sort of thing. You guys know I trade charts, not tweets. So if you do appreciate that, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And if you like trading the charts for what they are, because that is what this channel is all about. It's about actually trading rather than more of a long-term investment. Because even when I'm bearish, you guys, yeah, I'm very bullish on Bitcoin as a whole. It's just that I also am a trader and I treat my trading fund and my investment fund very differently. So when I am bearish, I'm still bullish long-term. It's just that I'm willing to trade the downside because there is a special feeling making money to the downside when the whole market is in full panic mode. So far, we're really still just struggling with that 4-hour resistance I mentioned, just struggling to get above the 786 here. So like I mentioned in the Telegram, I had mentioned that basically I'm laddering some entries into a swing position. I'm also looking for scalps. But basically my first laddered entry ended up hitting just basically below my 786 at $90,335.70 is currently my average entry on that short. So we'll see what happens with that. If we go higher, I plan to ladder into that just to bring my average entry up closer to my invalidation. But I will also be looking for scalps. How are you all doing? Let me know in the chat how you're all feeling about the market, how you're feeling about life in general. Hopefully you're all thriving out there. Hopefully you guys are just crushing it. A lot of familiar faces here. Love to see you guys here. Thumbs up for you guys as well. There is an article on Zero Hedge behind a paywall, inverse VIX versus BTC. Chart looks something like something we should look at. Being I haven't looked at it before, I'm not going to bring it up right now, but I'll consider checking that out after the stream. Just because I don't want to waste time looking for it and getting familiar with it and everything. Hey, Stu, thanks so much for the hard work. Pump it. Thank you so much for being here with me. I truly appreciate having all of you guys here. So many of you guys I have seen in basically every live stream I've done on this channel. So I seriously appreciate you guys here. 2 questions. Could you please look at the S&P 500, whether it broke its structure? Well, it looks like I actually went over that. Oh, how about that? I had a feeling someone was going to ask about that. Which fibs do I use? Are they available on TradingView? Yeah, I just use the typical fib retracement tool. I just change the numbers to my own Fibonacci levels. But yeah, that's just the fib retracement tool. And then also the MDX ALGO Master has auto STUBER fibs, which it's got a bullish one printed right now. Technically, this one is not valid because we did wick a little bit higher. This is one of those things where I always treat market structure, basically respect market structure first and look at indicators for confluence after that. And here's a good example that I don't necessarily agree with the indicator, although it's still very possible we get something similar to that. It's just not exactly how I would have the fib pulled, but I love when it lines up with my own fib pull. Great confluence to have. Questions about a token pre-sale. That must be, I'm going to remove that because I feel like that is spam or something. There. Oh, we must have made it big, legends. We got spam bots in the chat. I will just remove a couple of those, keep the chat clean. How much return percent you make with this awesome strategy? That's a good question. Over the years, it's tough to say. I know I've shared the odd screenshot. It totally depends on the month, but I think, was it last month? I think I ended up pulling in like 300% last month or something. It was or no, maybe That was a couple months ago. I can't remember, but yeah, I was nailing the Stuber fib setups and had a really good month. I think I ended up having like a 78% win rate or something like that, which is actually crazy. But yeah, anytime someone is going to trade a strategy, you guys, like including you guys, obviously, if you're ever looking to trade a strategy, whether it's your own, someone else's, be sure to use this replay feature on TradingView. It can be very helpful in helping you keep a level head because you can figure out how you are looking at the charts and see what catches your own eye, just in case, because everybody looks at things differently, right? But that being said, guys, those of you who are in my Telegram channel, don't forget, and actually all of you guys, in the description down below, there should be a Stuber fib video that goes over the very basics, the whole idea behind it. But those of you in the Telegram, check the pinned messages at the top. There is actually a Stuber specific video about noticing shifts in trends and structural breaks and that sort of thing. That is a private video just for those of you in that channel. So make sure you check that out. Just kind of goes more into detail about the foundation around Stuber fib setups. So that being said, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So if you appreciate these live streams, please do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Reminder for those of you interested in just learning and seeing more examples of some of my favorite trade strategies, my partners at BloFin are currently giving a sign up airdrop for my followers, which also gets you access to my private Telegram where I share some of my trade setup ideas, how I use Fibonacci's, market structure, give more of my thoughts on the market in general. So do yourselves a favor. If that's something that interests you, get in my Telegram by scanning the QR code on the BloFin poster on my screen there. Yeah, this was a beautiful call that we had just a couple days ago. Really broke down the whole trade setup so members in my Telegram could get a better idea of how I actually trade those setups. So very, I mean, a beautiful setup, played out exactly as predicted. And yeah, just a beautiful breakdown there. So, but like I said, just more of my thoughts on the markets in general, lots of my trade setup ideas, how I look at market structure, how I'm pulling fibs, all that sort of great stuff. So yeah, with that, thank you so much for being here with me once again, my friends. I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.